Hi everyone, how have you been? Going on 4 months since my last video, and on my end, my son karate kicked me in the face and snapped my glasses in half. So now I have these neat hexagon-shaped lenses. Oh, also, there's almost 100 of you subscribed, which is pretty wild. I didn't think that like 5 people would want to listen to me, let alone 70 of you. So I'm grateful for that, and sorry this has kind of taken a while to put out. Anyway, today I wanted to discuss some of the weirdest inventions of war that humanity has ever created. I'm talking a 4 foot long sword to a handheld nuclear device, so strap in, because this is the 10 weirdest weapons ever made. The first of our ridiculous weapons is called the Zanmadeo, which translates to literally meaning the horse chopping saber. The horse sword was meant as an anti cavalry weapon to, you know, chop horses, and the blade itself is massive, like roughly 4 feet in length. Basically, one extremely brave dude would go out into the battlefield and wield this real life Elden Ring esque greatsword, with the only direction being aim for the horses and then kind of just hope for the best from there. Next is something called the pickle gun. This was basically a really rudimentary version of a machine gun. It used a hand crank to fire off a round in a manner kind of similar to a musket. Puckle gun was capable of firing up to 9 shots a minute, which is actually pretty impressive because we're talking about the era of flintlock rifles here. The gun actually made an appearance in Assassin's Creed Rogue, as the main character can have up to 4 puckle guns on their ship, though they fire much faster in the game than they actually did in real life. All of that seems pretty standard so far, nothing really crazy to get you on a weirdest weapons list. However, never underestimate how racist Europeans can be. You see, the Puckle gun had two versions. One fired conventional bullets, but the second version was designed specifically for the use against Muslims. It fired square bullets because they were believed to be more painful and would, quote, convince the Turks of the benefits of a Christian civilization. Moving on to our next one. Have you ever seen a pistol and thought, man, what if I just jam that magazine into the gun sideways? Well, if you have, congrats, you've invented the harmonica gun. The harmonica gun had a strange decision of loading the magazine in through the side of the gun, moving the magazine down as you loaded new shots in. This was a particularly dangerous weapon, as when you fired, there was a chance that you could accidentally set off the other cartridges, resulting in innocent bystanders also getting shot, or, the thing just fucking exploding in your face. This is the Panjan drum. The Panjan drum, say that 3 times fast, was a secret weapon developed in World War II. Now, please keep the word secret in mind as we continue. The Panjan drum was basically a giant cart with two huge wheels on either side and rockets on the back to propel it forward, which already sounds like a great start. The cart was packed with explosives, and the intention was that the rockets would propel the cart forward into fortifications and then explode, destroying them. So, you're the British government. You're thinking about testing this new secret weapon. Where would you test this secret weapon? If you guessed a public beach, then you probably should apply for a job in British intelligence, because that's exactly what happened. Despite government warnings of potential danger, a huge crowd assembled to watch the giant explosive cart powered by rockets be tested, which then proceeded to fly wildly at the beach before the rockets broke off from the cart, flying above spectators' heads. This caused the cart to change course back at the people who fired the weapon before hitting the water and then exploding. So, I guess, all things considered, at least no one got blown up. Some of you have probably seen the rather controversial rat gun mousetrap, but after playing against the Skaven and Warhammer, I say good riddance. But after you blow that rodent's brains out, you might have the same problem as me. What to do with all those dead rats? Well, luckily our friends in World War II era Britain are at it again, introducing the explosive rat. This disgusting monstrosity was created by the British Special Operations Executive, where they acquired about 100 rats for medical experiments. Now, you may be wondering, what kind of experiments are we talking about here, Socks? Well, what the British would do is they would carefully cut the rats open, remove all of their organs so that it was hollow, and stuff the rats with explosives, sew them back up, and hand them out to spies. The idea here would be to plant these rats in boiler room factories, to which the expected response of Germans would be, ill, a dead rat, and they'd toss them into the boiler to get rid of them, causing an explosion. The explosive rat never actually saw use in World War II, as the first shipment was intercepted by Germans, to which their response was, "Why the fuck are you shipping 100 dead rats?" This normal British behavior spooked the Germans so much that they actually ended up opening up the rats and finding the explosives, spoiling the British plans before they could begin. Back to World War II for the next example of terrible weapon ideas. This time period really was just a goldmine of weird ways to kill each other, and spoiler alert, we will see more World War II weapons on this list. This is a dog. More specifically, it is the Russian anti-tank dog. No, little Fido here did not jump into the tank and rip the crew apart. Instead, what the Russians would do is strap a bomb vest to the dogs and then send them after the tanks to blow them up. Yeah, you heard that one right. These dogs had impact explosive vests on and were trained by the Russians to throw themselves into the tanks, thus exploding and damaging the tanks. This isn't like a small scale operation either. Russia trained these dogs from 1930 until 1946, and they saw extensive use against the Germans from 1941 to 1943. 12 schools training dogs at its height, and nearly 40,000 dogs being deployed in World War II. In a twist of semi-sweet irony, when a lot of these dogs got to live combat, they would be spooked by the gunfire and most of the time turned around and detonated on the Soviets that sent them out in the first place. Next is something developed during World War I, and it's called Dazzle Camo. The best way I can describe Dazzle Camo is like when you're playing a video game and the texture fails to load in. Many gamers out there will know what I'm talking about, and here's what it looks like. So the idea here is to not actually camouflage and hide the ship itself, because I mean, like, come on, Helen Keller would see this thing coming. But instead, they were trying to confuse other ships, especially when it came to distance. There's some debate about whether or not it was actually effective on making it harder to judge distances of the ship, but it was used pretty extensively during World War I. A study was done later in the war finding that ships using Dazzle camo were more likely to be attacked because, like, yeah, no shit. You've heard of the bulletproof Tesla truck. Now get ready for the Vespa Bazooka. This beauty of Italian engineering is what happens when you put a bazooka on a Vespa. Yep, that's pretty much it. I mean, look at it. What do I even need to say? It's a bazooka on a Vespa, which, while not designed to be fired while moving, it was capable of doing so. Oh, and just to make it extra nuts, these things would be dropped out of planes with French paratroopers. Oh, yeah, and it was made during World War II. Shocker. Okay, so I understand that we've seen a lot of weird weapons in this video so far, but these next two I'm about to show you are like on a different level. This weapon we are about to talk may possibly be the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Ready? Okay. So this is the Antov A40. So this is an attempt by the Soviets, which, yep, again, World War II, who would have guessed, to make tanks fly. The idea here is that basically a tank would be attached to glider wings and then be dropped out of planes and then glide to the ground, basically making them para-tanks. Now, shocker here on this one, guys, I know, but only one of these things was ever actually made. And, like, I could understand if this thing was created back in, like, the 1700s when people were still kind of dumb, but they tried to make this thing in 1941. The United States was just a few years away from making the atom bomb, and Russia's over here like, what if we put wings on a tank? Okay, so here we are at the end. While the Anatov may have seemed stupid, at least it wasn't like dangerous to many people other than the tank crew that was unlucky enough to test the thing. But are you ready for maybe the stupidest and most dangerous weapon I've ever seen in my life? First, before we get there, are there any Fallout fans out there? You guys know the Fat Man, the weapon that shoots mini nukes in that game? Fun weapon, right? Fits perfectly into that wacky satire world of Fallout. That thing is fucking real. It was developed in the 60s by the United States, and it's called the Davy Crockett nuclear device. Hey, really fast, just like, that can't be safe, right? Like, standing next to that thing cannot be safe. I've played enough Fallout to know these things turn you into ghouls. So, the Davy Crockett was a rocket device that fired an actual nuclear warhead called the W-54. And I mean, just look at this thing compared to the mini nuke from Fallout. Like, this is actually insane to me. These things were only in development for 4 years before it was deemed to be a stupid fucking idea to launch a nuclear device that only has a range of 1 mile, and it ended up getting discontinued. Thank God. Imagine being the unlucky guy who had to try and fire this thing. Like, it's basically a suicide mission. And there we have it. Some of the wildest weapons I've ever found. Before I leave you, I do kind of want to ask a question. I've been stuck between the next two video ideas for a little while, and I don't know which one to pick. One of them is about a Confederate village that still exists down in Brazil, like as in American Confederates from the American Civil War left and founded a village in Brazil. And the second one is about a breakaway state called Transnistria. I hope I'm saying that right. But it's basically like one of the only Soviet countries still left in Europe. Let me know which one you would rather see down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, please leave a like and comment, as it really helps the channel out. And if you want to see me talk about more weird stuff that I find, hit the subscribe button. Or don't, I'm not your dad. Bye.